Talking Auburn football, and then the Deep South college football is king, and the battle cry is War Eagle. Once again, it's K2 to go for Vernon Speak Sports. We're talking Auburn football like nobody's business here in May, at the tail end of May, getting ready for summer workouts, and we're already talking about Auburn versus Oregon. I think the term must-win game gets passed around very loosely, but it does hold a little bit of weight, especially when we talk about a game like this. We talk about the Oregon Ducks, who come into this season ranked number 15 in the country with aspirations to win their first Pac-12 title since 2014. That was accompanied by a college football national championship appearance, as was the same in 2010 with a national championship appearance, oddly enough, against the Auburn Tigers, losing that game 22-19 within the closing seconds in Glendale, Arizona. Now we talk about Mario Cristobal, who has really started to revolutionize Oregon's approach. You know, you tend to think that Oregon is a fast-paced type of team, as they have been in the past, but this is not particularly that team. They have very large offensive linemen. I think Justin Herbert is probably going to be one of the best quarterbacks taken into the draft in 2019, well, in 2020. Also have a lot of talent around him. C.J. Verdell, the running back, will be coming back. We also like Troy Dye, who is very athletic, has a lot of range as a linebacker. So we feel that Oregon could make a nice push in the Pac-12 this year. Now, we talk about the must-win factor for Oregon in this particular game against Auburn. There's really not a must-win factor here. There's no Pac-12 championship implications. If anything, national perception maybe. Of course, this Oregon fan base is really feeling really good about the potential of the Oregon Ducks this year. If you look on social media, I'm talking about the expectation, the energy is really high in Eugene, Oregon right now. And so for Oregon, a win against Auburn would really go some ways in confirming the fact that Oregon has just come off a number 5 recruiting class, especially now that Chris Steele has converted from Florida to Oregon. Absolutely just sky high. Things just could not be more positive for the Oregon Ducks going into the 2019 season. So, I think Oregon, this is a big game for Oregon. I think this would be a huge win for Oregon if they're able to pull it off against Auburn. You talk about the first time that a Pac-12 team has been able to knock off a SEC team in a very long time, especially in the neutral site setting, would be very huge for the Oregon Ducks, and basically set the tone in what is already expected to be a very successful season for Mario Cristobal, who really is familiar with the SEC, serving as offensive coordinator, and also has an infamous championship ring from the University of Alabama. Has a few guys from the South on his roster as well. We turn the table over to the Auburn Tigers. Nothing would get Gus Malzahn off of the fan base's hot seat quicker than a nice win over Oregon. Of course, just like Oregon, Auburn has zero implications as it relates to their position nationally by winning. Winning this game obviously helps, but losing the game does not knock Auburn out of contention, obviously, for the SEC championship. You look back at 2017, Auburn literally staring the prospect of going to the college football playoffs dead in the eyes, with only a half of play left in the SEC championship game in 2017, would have placed Auburn as the first 2-loss team in the college football playoff era into the college football playoffs. Of course, with an injury to Kerryon Johnson, the offense sputtered a little bit, especially in the second half. Georgia wins that game, goes on to meet Alabama, who did not participate in the SEC championship game. Oddly enough, Georgia and Alabama met one another in the national championship, Alabama winning that game in overtime after Georgia all but dominated most of the game. Like I said before, we talk about taking Gus Malzahn off the hot seat. After the Oregon game, Auburn has Tulane and Kent State up. which would be nice warm-ups for the Tigers before going into SEC play. A win over Oregon actually takes off the anxiety. Instead of going into redemption mode, Auburn can go into shore-up mode as it approaches the SEC conference play. So no, I don't think this is a pressure game to whether it is a must-win factor when you talk about what's totally ahead for the Auburn Tigers and the Oregon Ducks. But it would be nice to win kind of game, of course, to set the tone for the season. It's nothing like getting a good win over a Power 5 ranked team to start the season off and to set the tone for bigger things for both programs. I think the recruiting would be implicative, as well as this game will be taking place in Arlington, Texas. Where this game is going to take place is a literal hotbed nationally for recruiting. Would be great perception-wise for, Auburn and Oregon to have a very good showing in Arlington, Texas, as the recruiting will be at hand. So I don't think it's a must-win game. I think it's a need-to-win game, but it's not necessarily a must-win game. That term is thrown around a little loosely. Obviously, getting Gus Malzahn off the hot seat, getting Auburn off to a great start to potentially make a run here in the college football world, to get Auburn back into significant relevance, and also the same for Oregon, to get Oregon back to a level of relevance that it once knew in the early 2010s. Once again, it's K2 to go for Vernon Speaks Sports. We're talking Auburn football like nobody's business. Go ahead and like this video, comment on this video, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Auburn War Eagle.